And on to the next one of the Week Zero's character discussions. And given the last one and this one, just going to go out, the Week Zero's theme is a short-lived character, yet still very impressive. It doesn't mean that a character has to, win a bunch of fights, do a bunch of different things. As long as within the amount of time you looked at him and be like, damn, that character, even if it was only for an arc, left a pretty good impact of said arc. And the last one I did, Zero, who was a pretty big villain within the first chunk of Fairy Tail, and now we're going into Vetto, who, in my opinion, I think he was one of the big parts that made Black Clover very popular, just because his fight was, it was the first, similar to what I said, I guess not the exact same as something like Natsu versus Zero. That was like a second big fight. This was more of Asta's first really big fight, but obviously he wasn't by himself. It was a team. They didn't have Yami, though. There was a lot of aspects that it made it feel very different, and you were getting them fighting a captain-level character with, one of the third eye. And then obviously, once he dropped the actual third eye, just went a step above what was already present for his character. He was a very impressive guy. And again, the fun thing that I didn't even notice while setting this up initially is the last one was Zero, a straight villain. Now we have Vetto, who you can't call him a villain. He was more of an antagonist because they were fighting more for elves themselves. Their people, not as much like, again, good or evil. Theirs was very much, they were wrong from their perspective, though, we know how that all went, if you read or watch Black Clover. Well, not if you watch, because they're not that far, but if you read the series, you know how those events go, and then, all of reveals of such. Vetto is a very fun character. I like him because, one, he's got a great design. I love that badass, tribal, not tribal, but kind of savage, wild man design with, his facial hair and stuff. And it's cool because he looks way different than any other elf. For the most part, when you see an elf, you think kind of like a very pretty character. They're very just kind of supposed to be a sight to behold, and not wow, that's crazy. It's more of just majestic and graceful. That's usually how they're depicted. And for the most part, they are in the series. And sometimes they're depicted in different ways. I've seen evil elves where they're more like monsters. But Black Clovers are more like the most common idea of elves. Now, again, they're depicted in media. But Vetto isn't like that. He's 6'4", jacked, and he's got all this facial hair, and he's got this big mane of chest hair, and on his stomach. Dude's got a pretty gigantic happy trail. But he's also got a very cool magic, because I think, it's one of the most flexible in a way, without having to dip into a weird idea, because you have Raya. Raya is obviously his has the most. There's no real limits other than what we saw with anti-magic. You can't obviously copy anti-magic, though he can copy the swords. He can't copy the effects, which makes you wonder if it's any weapon or any kind of again through a tool type magic, or if it's just anti-magic, which would probably be the case, just guessing. And you had Fauna, who, she had the salamander, but that was not entirely hers. You could still count it at the time. And she had diamond magic, and she had her, her healing, but also salamander, and how powerful it was. But Vetto, I really liked the Vetto's because Vetto's was just it was beast magic, and it wasn't oh, he shapeshift. He pretty much would get some aspect of an animal in the name of a spell that did a buff. He had cheetah charge, where he increases his speed. He has rhinoceros armor that was just an defensive stance. He had his bear claw that was melee attacks. I don't think the whale one got a name of the spell, but obviously probably besides just being fine underwater, it probably gave him just maybe a very heavy weight attack, jump up, slam down on somebody. And then, his third eye gave him regeneration. He got his energy beams. He had a very cool arsenal, which I think one of the reasons that just made him all impressive in general was the fact that he covered a lot of areas without seeming broken. That was the thing that kind of bothered me. Fauna was too much because she had the strongest spirit in terms of attack power. She had diamond magic. Diamond's obviously very durable. She had pretty much full healing. She was too much. Vetto was still really impressive without him seeming almost invincible. He just was he was like, again, like going back to Zero, he was just this big, impressive powerhouse. And especially, like, it made it even cooler because, like, his personality, he comes off generally, he's like a predator, and he's playing with his prey. And, you know, it's a combination of, again, like a predatory, again, like fun, but also like an elf, like he enjoys mana. They're obviously, like, they're much more attuned with magic and mana naturally than humans are. And he had this kind of like enjoyment of watching, you know, the different types of magic that his prey would use against him, trying to push back against him, and, you know, him bringing them into despair. You know, that being part of his character, obviously Vetto the despair, and he always talked about, like, putting people in despair that he was fighting. Because the thing about it is, we find out his backstory. Like, he was this very, you know, shy, frail child, and one of the reasons, again, why he hated humans, like, we see, like, this part where he was crying because, you know, he saved this bird that, like, I guess some humans were tormenting, and it was, like, bleeding, and he was sad that it was, you know, in pain. And Lix talked about how, like, even though that some humans are bad, he thinks that, you know, and hopes that one day they could get along between the humans and the elves, and they could, you know, coexist with each other and really, you know, see eye to eye. And, you know, that was very strange for the elves because, you know, they were very nature-like, and humans are very, you know, unpredictable in that aspect, and they obviously were having problems between them. And that's always, you know, a very common thing with humans in a lot of, you know, like, fiction and stuff when you have other species and stuff, because that's, you know, what a problematic thing. There's a very large contrast between, like, humans being good or bad. For the most part, the elves were very good because they were just very nature, like, nice folk. They were very friendly. They were very small groups too, so they probably didn't get into that over. When you get to, like, large populations, and, you know, it's a lot harder to keep under control rather than just a couple duns and elves, where they're probably, you know, like a tight knit family. You know, obviously they get along, they all knew each other, but with that, it's probably was much harder because imagine you put yourself in Vito's shoes. Like, he doesn't like humans, or he sees them as bad, but he's, you know, he has high respects for Lick, and he's like, well, Lick sees, you know, they could be, you know, we could get along one day. Maybe he's right. You know, maybe we should look towards better things. And then things obviously progressing towards, like, you know, getting along with each other between the two races, and then the events happened that led to the death of the elves, and that probably would just make you hate them so much more, because it's like, we gave you a chance. The only reason I trusted all you monsters is because, you know, I respected Lick so much. And then he became who he was, like, when we were introduced by him. And, you know, he seems to like, he not only, like, getting people despair because he, you know, he's like a predator. It's like cats when they, you know, they could have killed the mouse a long time ago, but they're just, you know, they'll smack them around, they'll let them kind of like run just so they can think they're getting away just for the chase. And Vito he seemed like that guy a lot of the time. You know, that's the aura he gave off. He just was a guy. He was a predator playing with what he could have killed so easily, but he just loves seeing that kind of like, I can do it, maybe I can beat him, and then, you know, just kind of like dragging down, and like it's all hopeless. We can't do anything, we're gonna die, kind of thing. And that was where, like, Asta obviously, like, pulled against him, because what was funny is when he got serious, he was just like, all right, people are gonna die. Like, he got into that kind of like ruthless savage again, predatory, just wild animal style that he was designed over. But then with Asta, like, he took it way more personal, because, you know, Asta, you know, attacked Lick back in the cave arc, and, you know, at that point he was just like, nope, you know, I don't like you, you know, I'll give you a chance, but other than that, like, I'm just gonna slaughter you. And it was a cool thing upon that, because also, like, I like that he pointed out Asta's weaknesses with his anti-magic, because that was not only a cool part for their characters, I think it helped Asta on his character to know what areas he needed to improve on, but also cool with Vito, because it didn't just make him this mindless kind of like brawling like savage. Like, he clearly thinks, he analyzes his opponent, he's smart about it, again, like a predator. Predators aren't just like, I'm a big animal, I attack you because you're smaller. They're smart, they know what they're doing, you know, they're very skilled at killing and, you know, figuring out their prey. But again, like, he lost characters that wouldn't give in to his style of fighting, the way that he mind games with people a little bit. And even though in that he eventually lost, he wasn't ready to just give up, because similar to how, and I've talked about it a lot on the channel, so I'm not going to go into it too much, similar to how a lot of characters saw Zareth, and they had this very religious kind of like view of him. A lot of the elves have that towards Licht, and Vito was one of them, and he was, he's just like, for the sake of Licht and the rest of the elves, like, you guys are gonna die in the effort, so I can, push the plan forward. I'm not gonna let, these guys are dangerous. I'm gonna take them out and, help the progress. Plus, obviously, he just doesn't, at the time, he didn't like humans. He's in the plotting in now, and I don't think he's gonna even, like, go anywhere towards villain again. Like, again, he was a villain sort of at the time when you didn't know the context of the Eye of the Midnight Sun. You didn't really know too much about them, and they just kind of seemed like bad guys doing bad guy things. And then we found out again more of their story, and they came off, they were antagonists at that point. They weren't bad guys because they weren't doing stuff for the sake of evil. From their perspective, they were doing good things. And when you look at that, and now because he was reincarnated, he got a new body thanks to Sally, and he's got, hopefully, a potential, it's a potential setup, but it definitely already exists as, like, a high level of potential. It's potential to potential, I guess, because he had a skirmish with, Marileona, and he lost, and he obviously has potential to be kind of like a cool elf rival kind of character to Asta, because they're both, like, he's about, like, as old as him now in his new body. He's got a past with him, he's also a very durable, melee, like, physically strong character. I think he's, in terms of physical strength, he was ranked at number 3. The only characters physically, just not including magic, just muscular strength stronger than were Asta at number 2 and Yami at number 1. But he still could fit in that with Asta. That's potential if Tabata goes down that way. But his synergy with Marileona, I think, would be great. I'd like to see Marileona go out back in the wilderness to train after this arc, and Vito to go with her. I think that would be really cool, because their characters just meld just right, spot on, and I think they would just have great synergy. Again, his character, he's fun. He's one of those guys that, again, he's not like, oh man, this character was branded into this series as this amazing character that I always remember. He's one of those guys where you just, like, if you remember him, like, you're just like, you think back on, like, oh, I remember that arc. Who was the bad guy? Oh, Vito. I love that guy. That guy was awesome. Again, it's similar to, like, Zero, which I guess now I have a theme, sort of. Like I said, like, short-lived, but still really impressive characters. I'll probably do much more of a good guy in that aspect now, or at least kind of, like, further down the line of closer being good, because Zero is like raw evil, and then Vito is more like you thought evil, but it's actually in their perspective is good. And I guess I gotta do like a good character, so I gotta think of somebody by Thursday. But other than that, like, luckily I'm keeping this one a lot shorter. But Vito, a lot of potential, up and coming, great stuff. Like, especially like the scene in the anime. I think a lot of people picked up Black Clover during that period of the Water Temple, because that was where the series really just, it went on a hype and then stayed there. Because, like, you get the first chunks of the series, you get good stuff, but, like, the cave arc was enjoyable, it was fun, so it was like the Eye of the Midnight Sun, like, invasion on the capital. But the Water Temple was the first arc of Black Clover that was just, like, hype, and, like, that was when people were just like, holy shit, this was awesome, this was a great fight, this was really cool. The teamwork, the strategy was a really good part for multiple characters. And then you had the witch, obviously you had the short little Diamond Kingdom invasion, but then you had the Witch's Forest, then you had the Royal Knights exam, and you had the most recently the Elf Resurrection arc. It's been on a high since then. So I think that's also one of the things that really gives Vito like a good thumbs up. It's like, I think he was the start villain, again, not villain, antagonist. He was the antagonist of the arc, I think, that really got Black Clover's ball just going and going and going, and it hasn't slowed down since then. But other than that, tell me in the comment section below, do you like Vito? Out of the three, I was going to say 3-Eye, but out of the 3 members of the Third Eye, he's definitely my favorite. I'm glad he's sticking around. Raya and Fauna are both cool. Fauna's like, it's funny because, like, Raya is really interesting. He's got a cool character. He's fun. Fauna, we don't know a whole lot about her right now because, like, she was in the body of another character named Fauna who looks just like her, and she seems to have a similar personality, but, like, well, normal Fauna is, like, human Fauna is actually, like, very, like, polite and, like, very nice. Like, elf Fauna is, like, a little bit crazy. Just a little bit. And then Vito is just like this, like, high energy brawler who came from this, like, timid, very, like, shy frail little boy, and then just became this brute. And I like that right now the transition between those two with like his teenage one, he's still got the sharp teeth. He kind of looks a little bit like a scoundrel, and he just has that. He's that middle point between that of like you look at young Vetto, and then you look at adult Vetto, and you're like, what came between these two that made A into C? You need to know. And then you see this, and it's like, okay, cool. I like that. Now this is who he is now. And it's going to be even actually trippier now. So just really quick ending this video, but imagine like a couple of years down the line and Black Clover, you have like the characters be adults, and like you see all the characters and you're like, damn, like this is what the characters look like now looking back. And then you remember that like we knew what Vetto looked like as an adult, and he looks exactly the same as like when we saw him when he first came in. And that'd be like, huh, like it's like we knew about it, but we knew he was leading to this, but it's weird to see it. But anyway, tell me in the comment section below again what you thought about all this, what you think about this character. Next one is up is it's again mystery, but still gonna be fitting this theme. And then the polls will decide the next theme, and the themes will always start the new one on Saturdays. But other than that, again, go check the community tab on my page if you want to check the current ones. Whichever one wins will be taken out of the poll and replaced by a new theme, and then we'll reset, and then you'll just, eventually something will get picked, like, out of them. Like, if something loses maybe in like 4 polls, it'll win in the 5th one, and then it'll get knocked out and replaced by something. But again, other than that, go check that out and comment below in the comment section. And I really appreciate if you thumbs up the video, but from the like button and the subscribe button, and check out my other videos. By that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.